This reminds us that even if you think there's merit to helping out those with big student loans, there is one big problem. America's broke and we just can't afford it. Tea Party Republican Congressman Louie Gohmert of Texas joins us now. Congressman, good to see you again. Thanks for being here.
Always good to see you, David.
Well, when the president first proposed this idea of taking over all the student loans back in 2010 as a part of Obamacare, he said it would not only save money, but it would make the U.S. government a lot of money. But if you see defaults going up, as Lindsay said they were, we could end up being on the short end of the stick, right?
Well, that's exactly right. And actually, David, if you just look at the debt ceiling bill from back in August, I mean, people were out there, professors telling their students the Republicans cut Pell Grants. If you look at the debt ceiling bill, like I did, not many others apparently did, it increased the amount of Pell Grants from $3 billion to $13 billion. And my youngest just graduated from college, and we had to do student loans because I've been in government service, and that's I didn't want them to have to worry about it. We still owe on those. It would benefit me greatly, but that is not a stimulus, what the president's talking about in forgiving the student loans. That is a stimulus of his voters to come out a year from now and vote for him. That's all that is. It is buying votes with federal money that we don't have. We'll have to borrow 42 cents of every dollar that he uses to buy students' votes, so they'll come out again for him as they did in 2008, hoping that buying those votes, they'll come back in 2012. That's not a stimulus. And when it comes to the mortgage, I mean, my gosh, we have spent so much money, and the more, well, with mortgages, if he had done my original tax holiday bill that I told him about in January of '09, where you let people keep their own money, we heard from tons of people that said, we're a little behind on our mortgage. You let us keep all of our income tax for 2 or 3 months. We're caught up. The government's done. Right. And it would have saved so much money. But that would have been people keeping their own money instead of the government.
Well, Congressman, just keeping it on student loans for a minute, because we want to focus on this one thing like a laser beam here.
Okay.
Servicing the loans. One of the other things about government loans is that it always gets public or political interference in the mix. You have people leaning on some people to give their friends part of the action. And that's what's happening in the servicing of a lot of these loans. As I said, banks used to be very careful about knocking on the doors of students that owed the money. Now there are all these nonprofits that are going to take over the servicing. And surprise, surprise, some of those nonprofit organizations have connections with politicians.
It's all about buying votes. It's not about stimulus. And keep in mind, who else is going to benefit from those? He's buying back the bankers, not the community bankers who were not the ones that got us in trouble. His old buddies on Wall Street that gave him 4-1 over Republicans, the big-time bankers, the Countrywide, all those people that gave tons more, 4-1 more to this president than they did to Republicans. That's who this is. This is stimulating his voters and his folks to come out and vote for him, and the federal treasury should not take another hit for him to buy votes.
Well, less money. One thing that's clear is that less money will be going into the coffers of the government, since we now hold all the student loans, and if there's some kind of debt relief for the students as of now, we're the ones who are going to be holding that debt now. We're the ones that are going to be suffering, taxpayers.
Absolutely, but I thank God I don't have to go begging to this White House to let me have a student loan for my children, because it might actually affect what people say, the freedom of speech. But if you also look, David, look at the cost, as Lindsay was saying before me. You look at the cost of education. Every time we have subsidized with more federal money, more grants, the cost of education goes through the roof. Yeah. We can't catch up, so it's time to stop. It's time to quit subsidizing to the extent that we have been growing that cost of education, and let's let some real competition, not for federal dollars, but real competition for who gets the best education for the best buck.
Well, that leads me to another question, which is that if you guys take over the Senate and take over the executive, I'm talking about the Republicans now, and you overturn Obamacare, since this kind of takeover, the student loan program, was organized through the passage of Obamacare, would you overturn that as well? Would you put it back in the hands of the private banks?
We absolutely should. We have got to get this back in private hands. But if you look at the president's job bill, all he is about is more federal takeover. It's American Infrastructure Financing Authority. We have got to stop this. And as you bring up, repealing Obamacare, repealing the government being in charge of student loans, we have got to get out of that business. We have got to get this back in the private sector. We are supposed to be the referee, David. The federal government is. We are a horrible referee when we're the player referee.
Congressman
We
Louie
need
Gohmert.
to be about supervising and not being the player.
Good to see you again, Congressman. Thanks for
Always
coming
good
in.
to see you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Well,